Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Knoll, and welcome to the Rundown presented by Lights Out. For those of you who saw the content that I would make over on TMG, this is a show that we had started over there that I had done kind of sporadically on and off through the last couple of years, largely, again, just due to general constraints of my own life. But I, behind the scenes, have developed a deep and passionate love for this show simply because it is an incredible motivator for somebody who is wholly indecisive when it comes to picking movies to watch. Having a show that tells you what to watch is the best thing that I ever could have come up with for myself. And so I'm very happy to bring this show back. Now, we're going to get into the content that you guys will be seeing for the first little bit of the show, but this is a brand new recorded episode of the show. And as with our other show here, The Third Place, how could I start a show off on this channel and not bring in the man who is giving me the space to be here with him, Mr. Jake Tato. Jake, how's it going, bro?
Hey, doing good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about the whole joint collaboration we got going on here.
Absolutely, man. And of course, as you guys see in the title for the video and hopefully the thumbnail, the theme of today, I figured since this is the start of something new for something that's already existed, what better than to discuss the concept of phases, which is a term that Marvel popularized in the film world due to having various phases of films. The idea that you have a series of technically non-connected movies that are also completely connected to each other, and they build towards one grand story. Of course, we are in the midst of building towards the multi-part conclusion of phases 4, 5, and 6. But today we will begin our discussion all the way back with phase 1 and phase 2. For those who don't know, the first two phases of Marvel were exponentially smaller than anything that they have made since. So I decided to combine phase 1 and phase 2 into one video because that's still 12 movies, which means combined it's only one more than our average episode. So with that said, Tato, I'll turn it over to you, sir. I gave you a choice of topics to pick for this first episode. You went with Marvel. So talk to me about the MCU. Why is this something worth discussing to you?
Yeah, I still definitely have love for the MCU. I'm about as far out of it as I've been in the past decade, I suppose. And that's not because it's bad. It's not because I have superhero fatigue or anything. But the MCU itself is slowing down, and we're not getting 5 billion movies and series every year. Which I do like. I hope it breathes a little more, does give us a little bit more quality content, and just gives the artists more time to do art and stuff like that. Wonder Man was fantastic in recent memory, so hopefully we do get more. Daredevil, definitely looking forward to. But with that said, I thought it would be fun to, just go back and take a look at the origins, as it were, and just have some fun, see how we kind of maybe rank them initially, if anything's fallen or risen due to recent activity, and just chat about the beginnings.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously we are now far enough removed from all of this that, Iron Man 18 years ago nearly, as this is airing, Iron Man released in May of 2008, old enough to vote. That's a scary thought. Honestly, we're not that far off fictional cinematic universes being able to vote in the election the way the US is going, but also that it's been around that long. Obviously Marvel's had its absolute ups, it's had its absolute downs. It's had audiences captivated in ways that I don't think anyone thought it could. And, obviously Avengers Endgame isn't a part of this, but Avengers Endgame was the culmination of something grand. And I think even before that, we're going to obviously talk about Avengers 1 and 2 today, but those felt like culminations in their own right. Do you have a memory? Did you see Avengers or any of these big films in theaters back from the beginning?
So yeah, it was May, like the middle of May is my it was my highest it was like one of my best friends at the time's brother's birthday. So we went to Iron Man for that. They were bigger comic book cats than I was. So
Okay.
they were really geeked about Iron Man being done the way it was obviously done. I think it did blow out all of our expectations. I didn't have the relationship with the character. I was aware of him, like maybe from the Spider-Man cartoons vaguely and stuff like that, but I'm still not a big, huge comic cat. So I remember that, and then I didn't like hop on the train. I think I did see Hulk because I was an Ed Norton guy at the time too, and I had like heard that they were kind of connected and that this whole Avengers thing might be going down. I don't remember. And then I don't think I saw Thor or Cap in theaters. And then it was either kind of after Avengers was already out that I started really getting into it. And then I think around, it would have been like around when Phase 3 started that I started, hitting the theater every movie. It was around Doctor Strange, Guardians 2-ish time.
Okay.
About 2016 was when I think I fully hopped on, and then obviously throughout the 2020s kept on. And
yeah, I mean, I just I remember, I was a kid when the first Avengers came out, and I remember back then I would go to the movies with my dad, and a lot of the time he would just go see whatever the biggest thing in the theaters was. Like, just whenever he decided we're going to go to a movie, it'd basically just run a cursory Google search and go see whatever the biggest thing is. Sometimes that means I get to see Avatar as a kid. Sometimes it meant he took me to see Alvin and the Chipmunks. That doesn't always pan out the right way. But I do remember going to see the first Avengers in theaters. I had seen some of the Marvel films before that. I'd never paid attention in that sense, if you know what I mean. Like, I wasn't thinking about the fact they were connected. I had just seen them as movies because even as a kid, I watched a lot of movies in general. But being in the theater in that Avengers, that first Avengers, I wasn't in it the way that I think the average person that was there was. But it was that kind of experience where you could tell how excited everyone else was. And that in and of itself, I think, is really infectious. And that's a feeling that I still carry to this day. Even back in December, I went and saw Stranger Things at a theater. And I had never watched Stranger Things until 6 weeks before the finale aired. I decided now that it's ending, I'll watch the show. Even being in that theater, I might have been the least excited person in that theater, but that energy of that 10-year wait that all these people had to be in a theater that is infectious. And to me, that is just as fun as the movie itself being good. Just watching people enjoy themselves is a lot of fun. And I think at its peak, that's what Marvel was. It's just people going and having a good time.
Absolutely.
So with that said, are you ready to jump into it?
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. So if you've never seen the show before, here's how it works. Tato and I have each assembled a list of our own personal ranking of the 12 films from Phase 1 and Phase 2. We will trade back and forth throughout the episode. Tato's going to go first with his 12 through 8, then I'll go, then we'll go back to Tato for 7 through 4, then I'll go, and then we'll trade our top 3 back and forth, one apiece. If we happen to have a film higher in another section on the list, simply go ahead and say punt, wait, or some variant of that idea of letting me know that we are going to hang on till later. And for example, if my 7 is your 5, then we're going to punt till we get to your 5. But if your 12 is my 8, since it's in the same section of the video anyways, we'll talk about it at your 12. Do you, sir, as my panelist, have any questions?
No, I do not.
All right. Well, the audience will figure it out as we go along. That said, Tato, we are going to go ahead and turn it over to you first, sir. What is your number 12?
Thor: The Dark World.
It's my 12 as well.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Yeah, there's not too much to say about this one. I guess I will add a preface in that Phase 1 and Phase 2 both have a significant chunk in the top 10 and bottom 10, and I guess it is a 35 movie franchise, so that is kind of a reasonable third. But like I will say, this particular chunk of movies does have a significant amounts of high highs and low lows. In the grand scheme of the list for me. Yeah, Thor: The Dark World is my bottom MCU movie overall. It is like one of the only ones that I think I fell asleep in on my first watch for reasons like other than like I was just super tired any which way, or like other shenanigans that I used to get up to back in the day. It's fitting that Odin's father's name is Bor, because I've always said, man, that's what the movie is.
Yeah, that's very fair.
You do get like I will like to give it a little bit of praise. You do still get some dope performances from Hopkins and Hiddleston sprinkled in there. Like those guys are not really capable of bad acting, so props there.
Yeah, it's my number 12 as well. So in general, when we're talking the MCU, I am someone, when it comes to blockbusters, I'm very forgiving a lot of the time, because my philosophy is when you're spending this much money on something, inevitably some part of it is going to be good. Like, I think for a blockbuster to be bad that receives the amount of hate that some films receive, I think you really have to earn it. And trust me, there are examples where they've earned it. Or like, to me, what's worse is like a film that's just practically badly made, like something that is frustrating me to watch because I'm noticing all these technical errors, right? And that's just a personal taste thing. So to me, Thor: The Dark World is still the worst film the MCU has made, and it's for one reason and one reason only. It is boring. It's very boring a lot of the time. I understood what Kevin Feige was trying to go for. Alan Taylor's the director they brought in for this. He had done a lot of work on Game of Thrones. And I understand that influence wanting to be imparted onto Thor, but very simply, the storytelling in this is not nearly engaging as storytelling in Game of Thrones is. And visually, it just looks generic. It doesn't bring anything to it compared to Kenneth before him or Taika afterwards. So it's just a very bland-looking film. It doesn't have the intrigue that it needs. I mean, you cast two great actors in Christopher Eccleston and Adewale Akinnuoye-Agbaje as the two villains, and then put them under boatloads of makeup to the point where they can't act, and make them speak Elvish so they can't emote. I mean, Christopher Eccleston, I believe, is like actually Shakespearean theater actor, and there's nothing he can do for this because he's playing a nothing character with no real dialogue, with no way to showcase his face. And Jesus, he got more out of the G.I. Joe movie than he did this. Like, that's saying something. And yeah, it is very boring. Like the person I'll give props to is Renee Russo is great as their mom. I think the stuff around her is great, and I think Hiddleston's excellent in relation to those scenes. But yeah, there's just like Zachary Levi is a man who nowadays has a sect of people who hate him because they think he brings too much energy to things. And you be forgiven for forgetting that he's even in this. Because there's just nothing to any of these characters to make you remember them. And I mean, I think it says it all that Thor Ragnarok is so different from this film. Like, they just felt like they needed to rebound in the exact opposite direction because this was so boring. And that's the truth, right? Like I've said before on stream, in terms of practical filmmaking, second worst film behind this movie is the Marvels. But I will rewatch the Marvels any day over the next 10 films ranked above it because it's entertaining. Like, I give it a bad score because it has a lot of technical flaws, but it's entertaining. And
Monolani is so fun, dude.
Yeah, like that means something to me, to be entertained. That's what we go to blockbusters for, to be entertained. So, and this movie just doesn't. It's the epitome of boredom. The only reason I can't agree with you in saying I fell asleep is because it really takes something to put me to sleep. And oftentimes the movies I manage to fall asleep in are not good ones to sleep in. Like I fell asleep in Minions.
Yeah, that seems a good one to fall asleep in.
Oh yeah, quality wise, sure, but that was before the days of A-list. That meant to actually watch the movie, I had to pay for a second ticket.
Right.
What's your number 11, man?
The Incredible Hulk.
Okay, that's my number 9. Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm still not overwhelmingly positive. I do think I may have gone slightly up on this, and it used to be like, which one's worse, Thor: The Dark World or Incredible Hulk? I'm definitely farther away from that at this point. I like Norton a lot. Part of his performance doesn't always jive here. Liv Tyler is fine. Ty Burrell is fun because he's Ty Burrell. I
always forget he's in this till I watch it.
Yeah, he does sneak in there. And I love me some Hicks and Gracie, so that's fun for me too. But beyond that, they are still very much finding their footing here. And it just doesn't quite click all the way. This is still fun in spurts. There are good bits to this, but it is still unfortunate that we haven't really gotten to go back into this character in a movie of his own. I think the best Hulk movie is still Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, that's not unfair. In the same way, the worst Hulk movie might be Captain America: Brave New World.
Possibly.
It really does. And I mean, that says everything about the state of Hulk. Yeah, the Incredible Hulk is, I like it. It's fine. It's good. I definitely am greatly entertained by I'm entertained by the things that work. You know, I do think that Edward Norton really does work as the character in this. I thought William Hurt was a great choice for Thunderbolt Ross, and I think he would obviously get to do a little bit more later. With the character, he would get to come back sooner than others. So I think they work. I think their chemistry works. And I like Tim Roth in it prior to him becoming properly the villain, when he's kind of just a cocky asshole. I think he works, but he doesn't. I don't buy him as this like intimidating figure. Honestly, he's one of the few things that worked about She-Hulk because he's kind of goofy like that. That's more what I buy him as.
I like She-Hulk a lot, but yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah. So there are things about the movie that really work, but this is one of the examples in the MCU where you can tell that there were production issues on this. And like I said, this is the deep nerdy stuff that I like to look into, so I won't bore the audience by recounting all the research, but the long and short of it is, when Edward Norton signed on, he did it under the guise of getting to take a pass at script, which Marvel allowed him to do. So he rewrote elements of the script, and they shot the script that he wrote. And then in post-production, the long and short of it is they basically reneged on all the contributions he made and kind of edited it back into what they wanted it to be originally. And you can kind of feel it at times in the film. Like there's a lot of ideas that feel like they're not expounded upon. And I would imagine that's kind of the ebb and flow of having a script, rewriting it, and then changing it again in post. And obviously so much so that Edward Norton does not have screenplay credit. For anyone who never knew why Edward Norton didn't come back, actually the reason why. He was upset that they kind of made these changes after they had told him he could write the script. So yeah, just kind of a messy situation all around there, but it results in a movie that shows promise, but never fully gets there. The one thing I will say is maybe outside of Age of Ultron, this has the best visual interpretation of the Hulk in the MCU. Because I feel like they struck a balance in this film of keeping him realistic for what it is. Whereas, again, Age of Ultron being the one exception, I think a lot of the times Ruffalo's interpretation of the Hulk and how they animate him, it does feel like a cartoon living in a real world. And I'm not talking about Endgame, like that's a whole nother thing, but yeah, but no, there's stuff to like here, but largely I think it's just disappointing.
Yeah, one thought I came up with, I forgot. There are these moments of greatness, and it's but it's vast stretches of boredom punctuated by moments of greatness is the thing. Like there's just lots of this movie where nothing is going on.
That's fairly fair. I don't think that's incorrect. I guess the last nice thing I can say is it's the best of the American blockbusters Louis Leterrier would make. Because I like this more than the first Now You See Me, and it's certainly better than Fast X. So this, there's this was someone's pinnacle. This was someone's pinnacle. No, I don't mean that. I like Louis. What's your number 10?
Thor.
Okay, that's my number 11.
So there are two movies in this field that have gone down and up significantly from first rewatch, just kind of based on other things surrounding them, based on just age in general, in my opinion, shifting. Thor is definitely one that's gone down. I liked it a fair amount initially. It used to be a lot higher, but then you get you get Ragnarok, and Ragnarok is so much better. And so initially you've got like Thor and Dark World, and Thor is just that much better than Dark World, that it's kind of higher. But then you get all the other Thor adventures. You get to see Hemsworth bring in the comedy side of it more. And you're like, okay, yeah, Thor kind of it's a fun little Shakespearean ditty. It is very Branagh coded. Yes. I dig it well enough. I'm not low on it. There is I think there's more of a gap between 10 and 11 than 11 and 10, 12 even. But still, when you go back on this one in the grand scheme of things, there's, again, great fucking acting from Hiddleston and Hopkins and Hemsworth, as well as, Renee Russo's really good too. So you get these really good performances, again, the Shakespeareanness of it all, but the action isn't quite super awesome. The blonde eyebrows are distracting in hindsight. For me personally, anyway, it's holy fuck, they really went there with it. And then he doesn't have blonde eyebrows in the rest of the franchise, so you get so used to Thor that when you go back on this one, they fucking jump out at you. But yeah, fun enough movie. Don't have too many knocks on it, but don't also have a whole ton of love for it either.
Yeah, I would say that I'm largely in the same boat. Obviously, it's one place higher for me than Thor: The Dark World. I think I would like this movie a hell of a lot more if it fully stayed in Shakespearean Asgard. Because I think even almost the entire ensemble, I think, is great in Asgard. Obviously, the ones you called out are great. but I even think the Warriors 3 in this film feel the best defined as characters in this one. I think Sif, Jamie Alexander, actually gets time to give a performance in this movie, and I thought she was very solid. Idris Elba, I mean, Idris Elba's good in he's good in 1 and 3. I don't actually even really remember him in the second one, if I'm being honest, but I'm sure he was in there. But he's great in this film. Gives a really it's an example of giving a small but memorable performance. It's when you get to Earth, aside from the individual performances of Stellan Skarsgård, who I think is always great, and Phil Coulson, the stuff on Earth doesn't work. The fact that it's largely based around fish out of water humor, there's maybe 2 jokes that work in the entire thing for me. A lot of it doesn't really play. I think the fact that he doesn't have chemistry with Natalie Portman, he doesn't. I think the most chemistry-filled moment those 2 characters have is the post-credit scene of Thor: The Dark World, and very famously after the fact, it came out that he actually wasn't kissing Natalie Portman, he was kissing his wife, because Natalie wasn't available for the reshoot. They don't have, I don't think they have chemistry in any of these. I don't think they have it in the first 2. I don't think they have it in the 4th film. They don't work as a couple at all. I like Kat Dennings, and I thought WandaVision got some good use out of her, but the comedy in this film is not up to snuff, and she's annoying as a result of it. Even Thor: Love and Thunder, I didn't mind her small part. But just the comedy in this film is not well written, and if it played it straight like a Shakespearean drama, I think it would be fine, but it delves into the comedy so much that for me, it makes it a tough sit. I want to turn it off after the first hour because I'm just okay, I'm over it. I even think the stuff on Earth, considering Selvig would go to work for S.H.I.E.L.D. anyways, if you cut Portman, if you cut Dennings, and just moved Skarsgård over to S.H.I.E.L.D., and you basically just had Thor on Earth dealing with Coulson and Selvig, I think you could have even made that work a bit better. But it is just and this movie had 5 writers. That probably doesn't help. But between the 5 of them, none of them figured out how to write female characters in a good way. And when so much of the movie is centered around a romance, it makes it a tough watch. And when you centered the comedy around a female supporting character who's not well written and the jokes aren't funny, again, it's a very, very tough sit. And I hate to pin it solely on the women, but just in this instance, I think it is the truth. They are the worst part of the film. And specifically tied to that Earth stuff. It's again, there is stuff about this movie that I think does work. And I think Brana was an inspired choice to direct this. And even more than Brana, getting Brana to guarantee his composer, Patrick Doyle, to bring that Shakespearean style music to the movie, I think was an inspired call, but it just didn't pan. And sometimes that is what it is, right? Sometimes it's not like Thor: The Dark World where it's so boring. It's not Hulk where there's production issues. Sometimes shit just doesn't work out. And I think that's what Thor's an example of. It's not a bad movie. It just doesn't fully work.
Yeah. Again, just early finding their footing kind of stuff, I think.
I agree. What is your number 9, sir? Let's see if we can continue to be largely aligned.
Yeah. This is where it gets a little foggy. I could go kind of either way with my 8, 9, and 7, even to an extent. I will say Iron Man 3 here, though.
That is a punt.
Okay. And I ain't even mad at that. Depending on how far of a punt it is, we'll see, I guess.
All right. Then what is your number 8?
Iron Man 2.
That is my number 10. Go ahead.
Gotcha. So Iron Man 2, at this point, I have pretty much nothing but love and, minor technical nitpicks, but I enjoy the crap out of all of these movies going forward. Sam Rockwell is fucking perfect as Justin Hammer. Mickey Rourke works well enough for me. I can see where he's criticizable as a villain. But like, I enjoy it. I want my board. Fun stuff. Cheadle works pretty well as Rhodey. I think he gets better as he goes on. Gets more character work down the line. The action is solid. RDJ is always perfect as Tony. He never really misses a beat. Happy is fun. Just trying to think of any other significant praise to heap. Yeah, I don't, like I said, don't have a ton of negatives on this one, but I'm also not like super over the moon about it clearly either. It is just it's just a really good sequel. It doesn't live up to the original, but that's a hard thing to accomplish with how good Iron Man is. So it's a fine enough sequel. It doesn't fall off a cliff or anything like that. Like I said, Justin Hammer is an absolute delight.
Sam Rockwell might be the biggest miss of the MCU in general. Just the fact that you have him in the arsenal and you have not used him in any capacity again is.
I think he's in What If.
They did that short film's hilarious, but
no, I meant the animated series.
Oh, is he in one of the animated shows?
I think he might be. I think he might be in What If.
Oh, okay. Maybe I didn't see that. Yeah, Iron Man 2 for me is number 10. I agree with largely everything that you said. For me, my big criticism of this film is I think there's just too much. I think it gets bogged down in and to be fair, I totally understand the choice. Because all your other phase 1 films are origin stories establishing a character, they made a very tactical choice to utilize the sequel to the mega hit to establish the universe as a whole. And so what it leads to is, right, like I really like Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson. I think he's one of the strong points overall of the first phase of the MCU. I really like ScarJo as Black Widow. I think this film is one of her better performances. I think she's very memorable in the movie. Of course, I love Sam Jackson as Nick Fury. All three kind of serve the same role. And they're here together because it builds their character and establishes their pieces in the MCU. But you really only needed one of them. And I think the movie would have been serviced better if you only had one of them. But you did have to introduce these characters and make sure the audience gets to know them before you get to Avengers. Because you can't be introducing so many new characters in the first Avengers. You have to have especially because in Avengers, they introduce you to Maria Hill, who you had not seen before. They also introduce you to Hawkeye properly in that film. So there was already stuff they were saving for that movie. And I get why you have to use this as setup, but I just do think the setup bogs it down. That said, though, I agree with everything else that you're saying. Like, it's just a film that has too much for me, so I go back to it less than I would go back to certain others. But the high points of the movie are the high points of the first Iron Man. Like, I don't think Favreau loses a step as a director in that sense. This is one of the things about being in a cinematic universe is sometimes you're told you have to do certain things. James Gunn has openly discussed this as well, right? Like, James Gunn had elements of the Guardians films, like the Stones in the first one, that he got told, this has to be in the movie. How you figure out to get there, that's on you, but it has to be there. And I think Iron Man 2 is a case of just too much got put in, but you needed it, right? Because I also think, like, I don't think this movie needs a Mickey Rourke and a Sam Rockwell. I think they could have been one character. But I understand that you want a villain with personal stakes, and you do actually need a character like Sam Rockwell because you need to show Tony's progression as a character. You need to almost have a Tony Stark to reflect the growth of Tony off of. Maybe if this wasn't also a universe setup, having all of that would have worked. But it's just, for me, all of it in one place kind of conflicts with each other. There's a lot of interesting ideas that never get fleshed out enough. And seriously, like, I will sign the petition to bring Rockwell back. I almost never sign petitions for like actual good things, but I'll sign a petition.
I'm pretty certain we'll be seeing him again in the nearish future.
If Armor Wars ever gets made.
I was going to say, you probably actually do have a better insight on that than I do. But
speaking of, Don, where you at, buddy? All right. So anything else on Iron Man 2 for you, sir?
No.
Okay. Well, then with that, we will go ahead and move on to mine. So I will go through first and just quickly recount them because we've gone through most of mine. I had Thor: The Dark World at 12, Thor at 11, Iron Man 2 at 10, and The Incredible Hulk at 9. So for my number 8, unless it's your number, actually, you know what? Since we had so much crossover, I'm going to do my number 8, and then I'm going to go through to my 4, and we're just going to punt at this point if it's in your top 3, okay?
Okay.
We'll just kind of split the show in half that way, rather than alternating again back and forth, because, you know, we've had so much crossover. It'll continue to some extent.
Yeah.
So with that said, then I guess I'll jump into my number 8, which is going to be Captain America: The First Avenger.
Yeah, that's 5 for what a spoiler alert. Sorry.
No, you're good. Yep, we're in that section of the video. You're good. All right, if it's your number 5, you want to go first on it?
Yeah, sure. Captain America: First Avenger for me has always been pretty much the dead center of the MCU. I found that consistently over roughly the past decade or so, one movie would come out that was better than it, and another movie would come out that was worse than it, and it would stay at 14, 15, 16 as we progressed to, 28, 30, 32 movies. So I do love Captain America as just like the a measuring tool for the MCU. There's I always have that in the middle, so it's like, hey, if you're good, you're up there. Like, even though the whole MCU is obviously a thumbs up, and then you got the Iron Man test because Iron Man was the first one. Any which way, I digress. But yeah, this movie is really good. Chris Evans is fantastic. Really getting to see the building of Steve Rogers, and like, that's who Captain America is. You obviously later on get that exchange in Avengers about between Tony and Steve about everything special about you came out of a bottle, and proven time and again to not be true by who Steve is. And Tucci as Erskine is effing fantastic. Like, that performance just gets me every time. Every single line that character delivers is fantastic. Seb Stan as Bucky is really good. He gets to be even better later, as a lot of these cats do. The romance works here. The action is good. Just the story staying in, like, obviously until the very end bit coming into 2012 and Avengers time. But the story is much better contained. It doesn't suffer from that problem of Thor like breaking into Earth out of its fantastic little realm that it builds, and it's obviously more gritty, more dirty. It's a good like little war movie inside there as well. So yeah, performance is great all around. Direction fantastic. Cinematography really good. Yeah, this movie is pretty high on my list. Though I think it still probably is either dead center or 1 or 2 movies off of dead center in the overall rankings for me.
Yeah, it's funny because the movie's at my number 8, but I really can't refute anything that you said. Like, I agree with pretty much everything that you said. It's just, for me, it's a little lower. Like, I would say it's not quite center, but it's left of center. It's actually funny that you brought up like a barometer film, because I have 2 films that are same score, dead center. One of them is my number 7, the other's in a later phase. So I was going to bring that up as well. So it's funny that you brought that up with this, but yeah, I agree with you. Like, there's a lot about it that really works. Tucci is excellent. This might be the last time Tommy Lee Jones gave a fucking something, because seriously, it's been a long time since he tried in something. Oh no, Lincoln came after this. Okay, so this was one of the last times that he cared. But he does care, and he is actually very good in the film. Chris Evans, I think, does a great job playing both versions of the character. I think he really does do a good job at showing a character growth and progression for Steve. The romance does work. Red Skull's the one major weakness. I don't think the character is fully fleshed out. I don't think Hugo Weaving's heart is in it the way everybody else's is. Hugo Weaving would later admit that his heart wasn't in it the way everyone else's is. So I don't think I was that wrong in suggesting it. But there's a lot about it that works. I just like it a little bit less than you. But like, if it winds up a little higher up the list, I'm not upset at that either, because it is very, very good. A lot of people have compared this movie and its take on World War II to the 90s movie Rocket Man, and it's the same director. Like, it literally, like, if you saw that movie, you know exactly what you're getting, and I think he delivers exactly that in the best way possible.
Yeah, I think this one, and like I said, it's the middle ground for me. So if it ends up at 6-7 for us, I'm pretty content with that.
That hurt my soul. All right, we're gonna move on then to my number 7. This is always the controversial one for me. My number 7 is The Avengers.
Yeah, that'll be a Punsky.
Yeah, that's what I expected.
Yeah.
So it only gets more controversial when you put these two back to back, but my number 6 is Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah, that'll go. That is my
Where's
7.
that one at? 7? Okay. Yeah. Avengers Age of Ultron is a movie that I've come to like more over the years. I like, and it's funny because obviously we'll talk about the first Avengers later. I've kind of had the inverse experience where I've kind of come to like that one a little less over the years, and I like Age of Ultron a little more. It is a mess. I openly acknowledge that it's a mess, despite the fact that I enjoy it. But I think the reason that I enjoy it is because the things that didn't fully work for me in the first Avengers, I think, are improved here. I think Spader is excellent as Ultron. I think he's an excellent villain. I think the worst thing about him is that he's only in one film, which apparently is being course corrected coming soon. But yeah, he's great. He's a great voice, even from that first trailer with just the spoken word rendition of Pinocchio. Like, his voice is perfect for this, and it's haunting, and it's always great when you can get someone like him in a voice booth and they care, because voice acting is one of those things where you can kind of just turn off and be a voice and not think about it. But he puts so much effort into it. And then similarly, I thought all the new elements they brought into the film, for the most part, worked really, really well. I liked both WandaVision and Quicksilver. I actually feel something when Quicksilver dies at the end. Like, I felt something for a character that I met less than 2 hours ago, because I think they do a great job writing him and they do a great job presenting him. I also think they made a really interesting tactical choice of making him the lead of the two. You really get a lot more of him in this movie than you do Wanda. Elizabeth Olsen's performance is good enough that you're excited to see more, but they kind of understood, okay, if we're going to kill one of them, we have to counterbalance it and make him be more forward and center. I thought Bettany getting to step into the Vision role does a really, really great job. Paul Bettany's an excellent actor anyways, but now giving him a character to work with, again, talk about like British theater training, you can really see that come through in his performance in the best way possible. Andy Serkis is one of the low-key MVPs of the MCU. He is great as Ulysses Klaue, and I mentioned previously that I thought the Hulk might actually be the best in Age of Ultron. For anyone who doesn't know, Andy Serkis, who happened to be on set playing the role of Klaue, also assisted in the mocap for Hulk here. I don't think he physically did the mocap. I think it was still Ruffalo doing it, but he certainly assisted in how it was performed and directed. And there's a massive step up compared to what came after. And you can feel it and you can see it, and it's excellent. The action scenes are top notch. You know, Joss Whedon might be a piece of shit, but he can direct a film. You just got to call it for what it is. And again, I think, again, self-admittedly, the biggest problem with this film is it is a mess in the screenplay. There's a lot of superfluous elements. There's a lot of loose threads. It doesn't really do a great job of connecting to the grander MCU. I mean, the big question everyone points out is Iron Man ends Iron Man 3 blowing up all the suits and going, I'm done being Iron Man. And then he's just kind of back, and it's never really addressed. But I would, as someone who likes Iron Man 3 more than Age of Ultron, I think that's Iron Man 3's fault for writing a definitive ending in a franchise that didn't have a definitive end coming. Like, you have to bring Iron Man back unless you're getting rid of the characters. So I'm okay with it because, you know, could we have used a second of screen time to explain it? Maybe. But you know what? If you're not going to have Coulson here, who to this point was valuable to Iron Man's character, and if you're not going to have Pepper in the film at all either, then it's just exposition dialogue. Like, it's not going to do anything. Make up your own excuse in your head. I don't know. These are the things that don't bother me necessarily. I think if a movie's bad, it makes it worse. If a movie's entertaining, then I can forgive it. And Age of Ultron is just a fun blockbuster to enjoy. I think, and especially because the marketing led with it, that party scene at the beginning is unlike something we see a lot in the MCU. It's not often we get to see the characters be friends with each other, which it's implied they are largely friends with each other as well as heroes. I think that sets a tone for the entire film. Like, it is a fun romp more than anything else. And I think it really delivers in that sense.
Yeah, I'll pretty much echo a ton of your sentiments here. That party scene is really fantastic. You do get a lot of the characters. I love the Hawkeye stuff that you get in this movie with Wanda is really good. This was the one I was talking about that has gotten better for me in relation to other stuff coming out around it, and I have genuinely like also just keened on it a little more. The messiness of it all bothers me less than it probably did initially, with more stuff around it. Like, now we're kind of like, we are just in the thick of it where it's pretty damned impossible to keep everything super interconnected to the point, like all like super duper tight screws and bolts. They do a really excellent job of not having too much retconning, especially like from a trivia players and writer side of things. Not a lot of questions that you can't ask based on, well, this movie had this and this movie said this. They do okay. But yeah, like I said, Age of Ultron I've keened on because of I've grown love for the characters outside and went back and like, hey man, they were actually really they were pretty cool then too. Hawkeye, like I mentioned, Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, and I didn't know that about Hulk, but yeah, you're right. Hulk does look fantastic in that movie. The action is really good. Spader is fantastic, as you mentioned. So yeah, Ultron was one that was like in the pocket with Dark World and Hulk for me kind of initially, but I've since very much
so it's really come up.
Yeah, I've keened on that one quite a bit. From probably a couple years ago when I was doing my heavy studying for the MCU League.
Yeah, I the only element, and I want to get the characters and actresses name right. I think at this point, the only loose thread left in the movie where I kind of just go, I don't have an explanation for that in universe, is actress Claudia Kim, who plays Dr.
Helen Cho,
a geneticist who also seems to know how to work with rare metals to build a genetically coded rare metal body, who was just never used again. Like, you would think somebody like this would be kept on the payroll the same way Selvig was. Never see or hear from her again. But this is an example of, and I've actually talked about this before with the show The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I won't go too much into it because that's not the topic of discussion here. But I can be forgiving of certain things in films if there's an obvious behind the scenes reason as to why something exists. In the case of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, again, you can look into it yourself if you want to know more about it. But the reason the story is so sloppy in that show is because there were a lot more allusions to real world things that were accidentally made by the show. And Marvel kind of reached a point where they were like, we can't do all of this at once on the heels of 2020. We got to cut something. And they made choices, and maybe they made good choices, maybe they made bad choices, but they did what they thought was best for the audience to actually enjoy the show and not just be caught up in the real world drama of things. In this instance with Helen Cho, this was a period in Hollywood where a lot of Hollywood blockbusters randomly had connections to China because it meant that the Chinese government would accept the film. It's real. Look it up. Tons of blockbusters have scenes in China, or, I mean, Transformers is famous for having the whole third act of one of their movies take place in China, inexplicably. Hollywood was shoving Chinese actors and Chinese going to China in films because it meant the government would be more privy to accepting the films. So in this instance, we have a Chinese geneticist who can work with rare metals to make the plot move along. And we never hear from her again, and she's not important at all, but it meant that the movie could make 1.4 billion worldwide. So sacrifices have to be made. With that said, I'll go on to my number 5, which is Guardians of the Galaxy.
And you said top 3 punt?
Yes.
Or yes, then we will punt.
Okay. Then we'll get to my number 4, Iron Man 3.
All right.
I unabashedly love this movie, and I have since the day it came out. I have no qualms with admitting that or talking about it with people. And here's the thing, especially if you're, because I know you're not the biggest comic person, so I'm sure your reasons are a little bit different, which is totally cool. A lot of comic fans have an immediate aversion to this movie because of what it does with the Mandarin, which, for anyone who knows nothing about comics, for all intents and purposes, the Mandarin is basically Iron Man's Joker. So the best way to explain it is, imagine if a Batman film pulled the twist of Joker folie à deux, where the Joker we had spent the movie with is not actually the real Joker, and the real Joker was inspired by the guy. And like, that's basically what this movie does. And I totally understand if it upsets someone who's a fan of the comics. But as someone who has no connection to the comics at all, I love it. I think Guy Pearce makes for a great villain. I think Aldrich Killian is an interesting villain with an interesting background. I think this movie does what I kind of criticized Iron Man 2 for, which is I don't think Ivan Vanko and Justin Hammer needed to be 2 different characters. This takes personal revenge with business and melds it into one character, and I think Guy Pearce does a great job playing it. I think he's actually genuinely suave when he's flirting with Gwyneth Paltrow, and I think they work off each other well, and he's menacing when he needs to be menacing. And obviously, as we've all seen since, if you saw The Brutalist, Guy Pearce can really get menacing when he wants to, and I think he does bring that out in this movie. I think the extremist powers are an interesting concept in a superhero film. I think they make all the soldiers we see with the powers threatening and a viable villain. I think the movie utilizes its characters really well. Rhodey, I think, is a really fun character in this, and I like actually seeing him have to ride the line between being a member of the U.S. Army and the U.S. government and also being a friend of Tony's. Like, that's something they would come back to with Civil War and sort of use more going forward. But to this point, we hadn't really seen a lot of consequences for him kind of helping Tony on the side of the U.S. government. And I like that we sort of get to see a little bit of that put forth in this film. Using Happy as a means to emotionally drive Tony by having him almost get killed, I think was a great narrative decision. And then, of course, there is Trevor Slattery. Ben Kingsley is excellent in both versions of the character. He is actually a menacing villain as the Mandarin. He is an example of an older actor coming into the MCU, giving it 110%. And he is even better as Trevor Slattery, this just goofball of a theater nerd who has stumbled into the weirdest gig anyone will ever find themselves in. And I think all of those scenes, like him and Tony talking, they are hilarious, but they're also incredibly uncomfortable and uneasy because you are just sort of looking at this twist and being like, what the fuck is happening? Like, a minute ago, this guy was a threatening terrorist, and now he's cheering at the football game behind me on the TV, like, which is an incredible ad lib by Ben Kingsley, by the way. Apparently, the story with that is that was an actual game happening, and he wanted to watch it while shooting the scene, so his reaction was very genuine. Hilarious. So yeah, again, I understand that Shane Black comes in and makes a Shane Black movie, not a comic book film, and he does spit in the face of a lot of comic lore. And so I totally understand if you were looking forward to an accurate portrayal of the character, you didn't get that. And while I also think Shang-Chi's great, from what I know about the Mandarin, Wenwu also not really an accurate portrayal of the character. So that also does not fix the issue of wanting an accurate Mandarin. But I just don't care. I love Shane Black as a director, minus his Predator movie, which was awful. I like Shane Black as a director. I thought he brought a lot of charm to this. I thought he really worked well on this film. The writer of this film, Drew Pearce, has also gone on to write some incredible movies. He wrote The Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling, which I thought was great. He also wrote a Mission Impossible movie. I think it was Rogue Nation was the one he wrote, which was excellent. Like, just there's so much in this that I think works that I find it effortlessly entertaining. Really, my only criticisms of it are just there are some minor crafts qualities that don't put it quite as high as my top 3. But I've loved this film from day one. This movie might be only second behind The Last Jedi, where I walked out of a theater and thought that was awesome, and then I saw how people reacted to it, and I went, "Wow, that's divisive." Not everyone agrees with me. Okay, but yeah, I loved it, man. But I am curious to hear your perspective because you've said multiple times, like, you know comics, but you're not a comic person in that sense. Like, I think you and Jay Burns would probably bring very different criticisms of the film to me. So I'm curious to hear your perspective. I think you are muted.
All right, sorry, I had a train. So yeah, even though this is our biggest numeric gap, I'm not actually far off of you in any capacity. Like I said, with 9, 8, 7, they're all very rotational. So this could be as high as 7 for me on any given Sunday. Guy Pearce is fantastic in it, and Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 in particular. It's just Iron Man 2 in the moment that I was making this list was a little bit more memorable for me. But yeah, Trevor, I have grown on this movie. I was also more towards the bottom in earlier times, not quite as much as Age of Ultron for me. But yeah, Trevor Slattery, especially, big spoiler alert. Like, I'm not even gonna say anything, but fantastic in Wonder Man.
Oh yeah,
so
okay.
Getting more anytime that character wants to show up, if possible, I am super down for it. That was an absolute delight. So I don't hate that. Maybe there might have been a time where I didn't like it so much, but I've definitely come around on it. I am not super duper familiar with the Extremist comics. So the Extremist of it all works just fine for me. The Trevor Slattery. And then I think Wenwu and Shang-Chi also works for me. Shang-Chi and Captain America are very similar. That they are right next to each other in that middle bracket territory and they both like kind of hit different eras, which is nice to have the 2 measuring sticks for that. But yeah, so I like both versions of what we've gotten from the Mandarin. Tony Leung is fucking fantastic. Ben Kingsley is fucking fantastic. We got 2 just legendary actors playing different Mandarins, so it works for me because I don't have a ton of loyalty to the comics on that one. either. So yeah, I do like this movie more than the bottom third of or like towards the bottom quarter of a 12 list would suggest. Like I said, leading into Iron Man 2, even if Iron Man 3 had been discussed at this point, I do love all of these movies with very little flaw. Like you said, the minor technical side of stuff doesn't always work, and then the gap between Ultron and Iron Man 3 is whatever you want to make of it.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I guess in terms of expounding on the technical thing that I mentioned, like it's very minor stuff that I do think holds it back. For starters, Shane Black has this obsession with setting films at Christmas, and in this instance, I don't think it really adds anything to the movie. I mean, I guess there's there's the seasonal element when he goes into the woods, but for the most part, it doesn't really add much to it. I also think there's one large element of the film we haven't mentioned yet, which is Ty Simpkins as the character Harley Keener. I don't think Ty is bad at all. I think he's a very talented kid actor. I think that's one of the few elements of the film that, as it ages, it becomes less important to the film to me, because he's only really in the second act. Like, he's not a part of the conclusion of the film. He's not a part of the beginning of the film. And I don't know if there was ever an intention to use him further than this film, but the movie makes it seem like he makes a big impart on Tony, and then you kind of never hear of him again until he just kind of randomly shows up at the funeral. And there had been rumblings that he was going to be a part of Armor Wars if it got made. I can say this now because it's not happened, but if the information that I heard was true, a source had told me that he might have had something to do with a version of the Kang Dynasty script originally, in some very small supporting part. But like, no one really knows what's going on. So that's the only element. I don't think. I think they're good scenes, but I think they kind of slow the pacing of the film a little bit. But again, not nearly enough to derail it. All right. Well, if that's all we got on Iron Man 3, then we'll go ahead and move on to your side of it as I go ahead and pull this up here. All right. So, Tato, you had at your number 7, Avengers Age of Ultron. Go ahead and give me your number 6.
Ant-Man.
That is going to be a punt.
Interesting.
All right. And then go ahead and give me your number 4.
Iron Man.
And just to get past this section, why don't I go ahead and technically give that a punt as well?
Cool.
Because that means we can officially move into the number 3 section of the video. So, Tato, that's so interesting. 2 of our top 3 are different. Tato, give me your number 3.
Yeah, we got way more switchy at the end than I anticipated based on the beginning. But that is good, and I think all of these movies are pretty fucking fantastic. So it just
it's hard to argue at this point.
More personal preference than strictly like this movie is flat out better than that movie. But I have Guardians at 3.
Okay, that one was my number 5. Go ahead.
So Guardians is really fantastic. I love the whole franchise. Jim Gunn can pretty much do no wrong in making comic book movies. That sign me up for the whole new DC of it all. Put the bright colors and the funny ha-has and the ragtag group in my face. Always take my money. I am very easily amused by, like I said, I'm a big color cat, so those movies all work for me. The heart of the team is fantastic. All of the performances are nailed, from Vin Diesel's Vin Diesel's 2-3 lines to Pratt as Star-Lord is really good. You can say Jack Black could play the role I want, sure, that's fine too. But Chris Pratt is great as Star-Lord, so deal with it. This one went up a lot for me in comparison to 2. I used to be super duper high on 2, then I kind of fell off 2 a little bit in a way. And I see where 2, like, I kind of started to see where 2 doesn't work for a lot of people. But I still enjoy 2. It's just that 1 definitely jumped above 2 for me relatively recently. Just because I do think it is the overall better movie. Yeah, just the characters work, the heart works, the comedy works. I don't think I have anything bad to say about this at all.
Yeah, I mean the only real criticism I guess I would lobby at it is it's a criticism the MCU has in general, which is they have a villain problem. This movie in particular technically has 5 antagonists when you think about it, because it's got Ronin, Nebula, Jaimin Hansu, Robot Man, the Collector, and Thanos. And collectively, they all share 1.5 personalities, with Nebula winning out the most there. And obviously, she would be the only one to really continue on and get to build more in the Guardians franchise. But I don't think that it's not the biggest flaw in the film at all. Or it's not I should say, let me reword that. It's not a big enough flaw to really hurt the film at all.
That's a good point.
It's still effortlessly entertaining. I actually went on a journey with this movie. So statute of limitations is out. I can admit this now. When I was a teenager that didn't have money, I would go to the theaters and buy, like, I would be kind. I'd buy like 2 movie tickets, and then I would just hop around the whole day. I saw this movie in theaters 7 times, I think. And because I enjoyed it so much the first time, that by the time I saw it the 7th time, I was down on it, and I was like, I never want to watch this again. And for years and years, I'd never watched it after it left theaters. I owned the Blu-ray. Like, I bought the Blu-ray. I didn't watch it, and I just let it sit and sit and sit for years. And then I finally rewatched it before the 3rd one. And I came back around on it. I came back around on it a lot. I think it really works. I think the moment that James Gunn won me over on this movie, and I have to say shout out to my middle school art teacher for probably teaching things in middle school that were far too advanced, but that Jackson Pollock joke about the Milano is both a thinker, and also, once you fully get what they're going with there, absolutely incredible. It's an incredible joke. And I also think this movie has some of the most consistent, best use of pop culture references, because it's Chris Pratt being a pop culture obsessed human being, making pop culture references to people who don't get it. But he also left Earth in the 80s. So the references are all incredibly dated, and they're to people who don't get them. So you can twist the reference and make it anything you want it to be. And, like, I think almost the MCU almost kind of learned the wrong lesson from this film, where sometimes I think they go a little too heavy with the pop culture references at times, but they really work in this film. And also, I think this film is, in the comic book genre, it's one of the best testaments to casting, right? Because, like, casting obviously matters, but we've seen a ton of different Batmen, and most of them have been good. So it's easier to spot what a bad Batman is versus, like, what you need for a good one. Knowing that the number 2 to Chris Pratt for this movie was Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny. Now, Glenn's a great actor, and I'm glad that he's gotten his due over the years, and I think he could have been good. But it is such a different movie with someone like him in the lead role. And I think Chris Pratt's golden retriever earnestness as a person really sets in and makes this movie work. And I know Chris Pratt's gone on a journey with people over the years in terms of what they think of him. But I think when you come back to this movie, when you come back to Lego Movie, you really do see why he earned what he earned, because there is something about him that really works for roles like these. And having just rewatched Jurassic World, I think when you come back to Jurassic World, I could see Glenn Howerton doing that. I'd have been down for that, but no.
I'm
All
currently
jokes
watching
aside, though.
Parks and Rec for the first time, so yeah, like I definitely get it.
Have fun with that. How far into it are you?
In halfway in season 2, I think.
Oh, okay. So yeah, the show is not even at its peak. Yeah. If you're into it already, the show is not even. It'll get better.
Cool.
So yeah, Guardians is a hell of a lot of fun. It's hard to disagree with you there. All right, so that's your number 3. Do you have anything else to comment on, or are we moving on?
Nope, I'm good on that one.
Okay, so then we'll come to my number 3, which is Ant-Man. I think this was your number 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Ant-Man's. I've always loved this film. Honestly, how much I love this movie is why by the time we got to the third one, I was so disappointed, because I really think this first one works, and the sequel's not as good, but I still think it's entertaining. I had referenced earlier, there are 2 films that sort of sit in the middle as like, okay, this is to me is like the middle of the pack. And so everything is where you start is sort of, do I enjoy it more than this or enjoy it less than this? Ant-Man 2 is one of those 2 movies. Because I think it is enjoyable. One of the reasons I think, and this is kind of a collective opinion, I'm not saying anything original here. One of the reasons I think Ant-Man 3 disappointed people so much is not only was there dips in other areas in terms of quality, but it also kind of lost the core of what made Ant-Man fun, which is the ensemble. Like, this is truly a heist comedy at its core, in that it has all these characters playing all these bit ensemble parts, and they really, really make it work. You know, I watch this movie and I see the vision with hiring Peyton Reed to do Fantastic Four, because I think Fantastic Four and Matt Shakman, I think, brought this to an extent later when they made that film, but Peyton Reed does sort of bring what I think a Fantastic Four needs, which is he makes an ensemble work. I mean, I feel like if you go back 10 years before Ant-Man gets made, right, and you say to someone, okay, in 10 years, Paul Rudd is going to be a superhero, and his like supporting team are going to be Michael Douglas, the girl from Lost, Michael Pena, who, for anyone who doesn't know, really prior to Ant-Man, Michael Pena was largely a dramatic actor. He was not a comedy actor in the way that he is now. Like, I mean, just for an example, Michael Pena is in Crash, like best picture winning but maligned Crash. Michael Pena is in that movie. So Michael Pena, the rapper T.I., and no one even knew who David Dastmalchian was at that point. So let's just say a Russian dude is going to be the lead of this movie. You'd be thinking, what the fuck are they doing? And it is kind of that energy, but they really make it work. The movie's hilarious. And it's not just Edgar Wright. Like a lot of people like to say, oh, it's because Edgar Wright helped write this one. I also think having Adam McKay and Paul Rudd write it also made a huge difference to the comedy. That was something the third one lost. Paul Rudd and Adam McKay didn't return for that one as writers. And I think you lose their touch too, because this movie comedically really does feel like a mixture of Anchorman and Shaun of the Dead. Like, the friend group in the apartment, that's straight out of Anchorman. Thomas the Tank Engine and all the visual gags, that is straight out of an Edgar Wright film. But the 2 humor styles find a way to mix, and it makes for a comedy that genuinely has a lot of laughs in it. And then in addition to that, I think dramatically it also does work. Like, you really come to care about Paul Rudd. You really come to care about his family. You know, I think one of the reasons, I don't know, I know the recasting of Catherine Newton into the role was kind of made a big deal, and a lot of people like to focus on the actress who was in Endgame for 30 seconds, and I think it has less to do with that, like, deeply. I think it has less to do with that. It has more to do with, this is a kid who you had had the audience connect with to such an extent that any version of aging the character was going to react badly to it. I think the fact that they recast the actress again doesn't make it better, but whatever I think of Catherine Newton in the film, I think Peyton Reed has a right to work with the actress he wants to work with. He didn't make the call to recast her. I also think, truly, considering the young girl that had played the character in the original, she's like 18 now, I think. So if they had hung on long enough, she'd have aged up anyways. But yeah, it's the movie really does a great job of endearing you to the characters and connecting you to the characters, and that's what makes the comedy work. As a superhero film, as an MCU film, is it super consequential to the universe? No, not really. Is the stuff that's connected to the MCU the worst part of the film? Like the Shield stuff, and Martin Donovan is that one-off villain, and yeah, it's the worst stuff in the film, but it doesn't derail it. Like, I think this is a movie that I think you could show to somebody who's never seen an MCU film and go, just enjoy this. And that to me is a big quality. Like, my top 3 films are films that I think you could just show someone and they would get a good time out of it. To be fair, Guardians, I think, falls into that too. I think intrinsically, Iron Man 3 cannot be that movie. It's the third film. It's a sequel to a lot of things, but Ant-Man's just a hell of a good time. And that theme song's catchy as hell. I'm sure nobody else remembers it, but it stuck with me. As somebody who was playing piano in high school, that theme song stuck with me. Go ahead and hit me with it. Number 6.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot. I was like, yeah, man, good stuff. Yeah, no, like you said, this movie is all heart. Paul Rudd, as we all know, is an immortal vampire and is hilarious, genuinely, both in acting and like as a person and in writing. Clearly, like you nailed it on the head with the mix of the Shaun of the Dead and the Anchorman, and yeah, this is just right. Villain problem, much like most of the MCU, like you said. Not a super duper awesome villain. Fun enough when he returns. The Catherine Newton of it all doesn't super bother me down the line either. So yeah, like I said, I'm pretty high on this movie. It's all fun. Douglas is great. And yeah, Ant-Man 3, like you said, like everyone has said in millions of times, it really just loses the wombats of it all. Pena is fantastic. Das Malchin is great. T.I. is still really good. Even like genuinely, it's not just he doesn't feel shoehorned in for the purpose of T.I. being in a movie, which I think he very easily could. He fits into the group just as. Yeah.
Weirdly, these 4 guys come together and have good chemistry. And I also, and to be fair, I didn't reference them necessarily either, but I think a lot of undue credit isn't given to Bobby Cannavale and Judy Greer as the stepdad and his ex-wife. Like, all of these people feel like real people who actually care about each other, and that goes a long way to make a movie work.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that one. I wouldn't have got to the name, but yeah, Cannavale is a guy I've come around on a lot recently. There was I think it was like a Netflixy coming of age from 2024-25. Do you know what I'm talking about? That he was the teacher in it. And he kept like,
that sounds. Give me a sec. I can find it. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Incoming.
Yeah. There you go.
With Mason Thames.
Yeah. I enjoyed that movie quite a bit, and I don't think a ton of people saw it or anything, but he is effing hilarious.
I heard it was good. I didn't see it, but I heard it was good.
Yeah. Kind of all really funny. Anyway, sorry for that sidetrack. But yeah, Douglas is great. Evangeline Lilly is pretty good in this. Their chemistry works again more than a Jane Thor type situation, so that is nice. And obviously it doesn't really develop in this movie, more so in the future, but yeah, the concept, the effects are all good. The Ant-Manning of it is really nice. I think probably it's a fun new take on the world we've been in for quite some time at this point. Obviously the end of phase 2. It's there it is. Yeah. The end it's a really, really good palate cleanser for phase 2 after Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Nice lead into
I agree.
It's just breath of fresh air.
All right, then we'll go ahead and move on. Tato, hit me with your number 2.
The Avengers.
All right, that is my punt from number 7. Go ahead and tell the audience why I'm wrong.
Yeah, this one is just pretty damn perfect. They built to it. They didn't necessarily have like the tremendous weight of expectation that I think would come after this masterpiece. Just wild success financially and critically and everything. This is where we finally put it all together, and like this is what we've been working towards. The argument scene on the Tesseract is just a masterclass on all the actors' parts. I think all the performances in this are great. Hiddleston is a really good first villain for them to fight before it gets like it's a world-ending threat going on, but it's not as big and galaxy-ending as Thanos would go on to be later type thing. So it still feels kind of constricted, even though it is big and in space. It's still on Earth being affected. So it goes big without feeling too big. It packs in a lot without it feeling like too much in the way that like in Iron Man 2 does, or sometimes Age of Ultron also gets in that category. The collection, them all coming together, the feel of the moment, I think still holds for me a lot. That's something that hasn't ever washed away in the past 14 years. Like just that moment, the circle, the moment you see the Avengers assemble for the first time, that still hits just as hard as it did then. So that I think those types of scenes holding Puny God, it's still like probably one of the more quotable movies. Yeah, like I said, action all works, cinematography really excellent, story totally fleshed out. Yeah, this just works on every level for me.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I won't disagree with you on most of it. The reason that this movie sinks lower for me, and it was something that I kind of felt after I saw it the first time in theaters that opening weekend. And it's a feeling that's just sort of never left me. And it permeates a little bit in the first Thor as well. I've never bought Hiddleston as a good villain. Like that's kind of I've never bought him as a good villain. I think he's an excellent actor. I think when he gets to play Loki as this complex character that like wants to be a villain but can't, I think he really sells it. But I think it's almost because of that something about him as an actual villain doesn't work for me. You know, there's no part of this film where Loki ever feels like he fully has the upper hand. In fact, as a villain, when Loki is at his most effective is when he has Hawkeye doing everything for him, which I think is a great narrative piece because Hawkeye's the one Avenger we didn't set up. He's also the one Avenger we don't get to really meet in this movie. You don't get to really know him till the second film. And maybe part of that is because I don't know how true this is, but I have heard over the years that apparently he was supposed to be in Winter Soldier as well. And it was a scheduling thing. He couldn't be a part of that film. So maybe they had envisioned like, oh, we'll get to know him sooner and it just didn't work out. But letting Renner just be menacing as a villain does a lot to show you why his character is a threat. Like having him combat the Avengers and kind of pull it off shows you why the guy with the bow and an arrow is a threat. But the fact that I find Hawkeye a more threatening villain than our actual villain, I think hurts the film in the end. I almost find the World Security Council launching a nuke to be a more threatening thing than anything Loki does. And that is just my one problem with the film. I feel like every other Avengers film that followed with Ultron and then subsequently Thanos, having a villain that can actually bring gravitas and menace and stakes invests me more. Whereas every time I watch the Avengers, there's a lot of fun moments and it is a good time. Like, it's easily the best film of the four if I'm just having a party and I want to put something on. Like, it's a fun movie to watch, but I just don't find myself being invested in it the way that I do any of the others, because I don't, something about Loki doesn't click with me in this film. And he is such a big part of the movie that it takes away from me. But that said, I think, obviously the group all has great chemistry. Those moments where they want that reaction from you, they work. They don't earn any of it cheaply. Specifically in this film, I think Evans really gets a chance to shine. I think from a character perspective, he was maybe the most muted of the four in the previous, like the introduction films, because Captain America is supposed to be a Boy Scout. I feel like this is the first time we really get to see Evans have more to the character. There's a reason they leaned in later down the line with his barbs against Tony Stark. It's because as an actor, he really can pull it off. He makes it work. But yeah, it's unfortunately there's one big flaw right down the center of the film for me, and it is Loki. And it's a shame because I love Hiddleston in pretty much everything aside from this. But like, I dislike him so much in this movie as a villain that when they set up the Loki show in Endgame, I didn't have any interest in it originally. And by the time that show comes to a conclusion, I'm around on it fully, and I think a lot of it is an excellent show. But taking Loki back to being a straight villain, I was just like, man, this is when he is the least interesting as a character to me. I don't need to see this. It's unfortunate that one of the biggest parts of the film doesn't work. But everything else is hard to disagree with. So again, if you don't have that feeling that I have with Loki, number 2 makes sense. And yeah, this is one of those experiences in a theater. Nothing beats being there with a crowd for that. Like, movies like this I think every movie is made better in a movie theater because I'm a pretentious prick, but movies like this are why the movie theater needs to exist. Which then brings me on to my number 2, which is Iron Man. Iron Man is my number 2. There has never been a line more real than when Obadiah Stane screams Tony Stark made this in a cave with a box of scraps. And that's because if you know anything about the production of this film, this movie was also made in a cave with a box of scraps. They basically made this thing because they felt they had to get something going. They had no real script. They were rewriting everything on the fly. And by the way, this doesn't work in Hollywood. Doing this doesn't work. And the best example I'll give you is this: 2 of the same writers that wrote this film, Art Markham and Matt Holloway, they would also later write Men in Black International. And the story sounds like it was much in the same way, where a lot of shit was being rewritten day of. And that movie's atrocious, and you can feel it. This movie is a miracle. Like, the fact that it's watchable is a miracle. The fact that it's excellent, 100% is Jon Favreau. Like, I don't care how mediocre The Mandalorian gets. I don't care how checked out he was making Lion King. Jon Favreau should go down as an all-time modern-day great in blockbuster filmmaking because he literally pulled something like this off with nothing. And it is this good. I think most MCU fans would have this film somewhere near their top 5. And the fact that that's the case is impressive. The fact that it's held up after all these years is impressive. It has stakes. It's grounded. Jeff Bridges, again, like, he is an actor where I have seen him in enough to know that he can show up and not care. He cares. He is committed. He is great as Obadiah Stane. The MCU is filled with characters like Stanley Tucci and Captain America, where they basically get one movie to impart a performance. The original is Sean Taub as Yinsen. He's excellent in this film. For such a small part, the bond that he has with Tony, I think, really sells it at the start of the film. Yeah, and of course, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. What is there to say at this point? Like, literally, what is there left to say? The man gets paid $75 million a movie, and we all kind of just go, "Yeah, okay, yeah, that tracks." Or give him more if he wants it. probably pay off for you in the end. So yeah. Funny enough, the literally only negative, quote unquote, I have on this film is I don't think Terrence Howard is the strongest he's ever been. And honestly, part of that might just be retrospective comparison to Don Cheadle, because I think Cheadle has a better chemistry with Downey in the films, so he fits in much quicker. Howard feels a little bit out of place playing the comedic side character. He's a little more dramatic bent as an actor a lot of the time. But he's not bad. Like, he's really not bad. I think that's really just more a comparison thing because we have another performance to compare him to. Yeah. What else can you say? That said, Tato, I'll go to you. What would you like to add?
Yeah, honestly, not a ton. This is my 4 here. It did recently fall just out of the top 10. I have it at 11 now. And like, yeah, no, I'm not mad at it either. Like the things that are but like Guardians, which was my 3, obviously is above it. And like I've got 2 more movies. Like again, Avengers, obviously my 2, and I think our consensus 1, spoiler alert, I have all above this. But all of those are 6 through, like in the 6 through 10 for me. So my top 5 is a little more recent. But yeah, I definitely don't fault anyone who has this in their top 5. It, like I said, recently bumped out for me of the top 10. This movie is pretty fucking fantastic. This is the line where they're almost perfect. Like I've said I have 0 complaints about most of these movies, but I can definitely nitpick a lot of them.
Of course, yeah.
Iron Man is way harder to nitpick. Like you said, it's a miracle. The way this just went down, the Feige, the Favreau, the RDJ, just like the magic of it all is like, and it just happened to pop on screen, like probably right place, right time, right movie. You don't really like, I don't know how much they had planned in the long run of it all. Like if they were like, yeah, Avengers, or if they were just like, I think they're shooting their shot, and yeah, it built the whole fucking magical palace that we have now of the MCU. And without Iron Man being what Iron Man was, we probably just don't have the MCU at all, or it only exists till 2015 and fizzles or something like that. But yeah, just solid foundation.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, I mean, really, like, this is a film that I think you almost study in like film production class, right? Like the fact that it's so little of the script was written, so much was being reshot. The fact that they were using this as a launching point, attempted for a cinematic universe, having someone like Jon Favreau, who had never helmed a film like this, take it on, having, again, in 2005 context, recently recovered addict Robert Downey Jr. be the lead of your movie, not exactly the smartest PR call anyone's ever made. Getting someone like Jeff Bridges, who's known to be checked out. Gwyneth Paltrow was basically starting the end of her career. I mean, making the amount of money she made making these movies allowed her to fund Goop, and then she largely checked out of acting, as is evident by her inconsistent appearances in later MCU projects. So much was going against this film, and it worked. And that, yeah. Sorry, this is where the film nerd in me really comes out. Like, it's impressive, man. That said, I'm going to let you go first on our number 1. Because I will
take a moment here.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and start my number 1, because I can talk long enough to give Tato a moment to step away. and then Tato can not hear what I said, and he can come back and discuss the film on his own. Our collective number 1 is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And I'm going to take a moment and tell a story here while Tato is stepped away. Originally, this was a pre-planned break we were going to take on the recording, but it's kind of panned out that I can fill the time here, so let's go for it. So Captain America: The Winter Soldier came out, I think it was April 2014, and it was within like the first year or so where I was really getting into the filmmaking side of loving movies. I'd watched movies endlessly since I was a little kid, but I was really starting to show an interest in the behind the scenes of it. And I remember it was Saturday of opening weekend after my 8th grade prom, shitty prom for kids. And I was hanging out with some friends, and we went to a midnight screening of this film. So keep in mind, I had been busy all afternoon. We had done stuff all night. We go to a midnight screening of this movie. Everyone that walked in that theater with me either got called out by their parents halfway through the film or fell asleep. I was alert. I was awake, eyes glued to the screen the entire time. Thank God my parents put up with my bullshit and let me stay and finish the movie, because we were in there for a while. It's a long movie. And I think this movie is the movie that single-handedly like helped invest me in wanting to know about filmmaking. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I had my notifications on. I hope that it didn't come through. I think this movie is the movie that helped me want to like find out more about filmmaking and kind of invest my energy in that direction. Because this movie is just so technically well crafted. Really the biggest confusing thing about this movie is that the Russos have gone on to make movies that are so mediocre outside of the MCU. Like, I don't know what the magic sauce was that made this work, but they had it. I think this is Chris Evans, possibly his best performance in the MCU. He is exceptional. I would say it's Sam Jackson's best performance in the MCU. He is incredible in this. Anthony Mackie was an incredible addition to this film as Falcon. He really works. He has great chemistry with everyone on screen. Robert Redford, I mean, a living fucking legend playing the villain of your movie. Obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, the film is largely a nod and reference to Redford's own film from the 70s, 3 Days of the Condor. It's one of the things that inspired the political thriller aspect of the film. But actually securing him and having him in the film and having him care and really give a great performance as Pierce helps the movie a shit ton. But also, like, the fact that what it's covering is still relevant to this day. Like, I mean, we just had awful movie, but Mercy just came out. And Mercy's kind of covering the same ideas of, like, trying to use technology and recognizing patterns and trying to find a way to make justice swifter, but also the inhumanity that comes with trying to make justice swifter, and is the inconsistency of human judgment better than the harsher reality of letting technology judge things? You know, and this isn't a new concept either. You know, Minority Report was 10 years before this film, and it covered the same idea, but that book was written 30 years before that. But I think Winter Soldier covers it in a really interesting way by using the lens of superheroes, right? These are these are people that put their lives on the line to stop criminals. What if we could identify the criminals before they were even criminals? And is the potential for danger that comes from that worth the upside? And then obviously the film throwing the wrench halfway through of, well, it doesn't really matter morally where you stand on the issue because it's being run by fucking Hydra, which is an element of the film that has aged scaringly well in modern U.S. politics, but that's a note for another day. It is, again, it's excellently shot. The choreography is incredible. Again, nerdy behind the scenes info. The guys who would go on to direct John Wick helped with the choreography of this film. You can tell. It's exceptionally done. And it's a beautiful amalgamation of all the best elements of the MCU in a film that is good enough that, irrespective of the fact that it's a sequel, I think you could show this film to anyone and they would love it. All right, I successfully killed time. I hope no one skipped through it. I'll put a time code if they want to skip through it. Tato, go ahead and talk to me about Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I can't imagine I'm too far off you. I did hear a decent chunk of what you said. The fact that it's still it holds up, the relevance to this day is absurd. The movie making of it all does not suffer from sequelitis in any way, shape, or form because it is just its own different movie. It's not trying to repeat. We're not back in World War II again. Cap gets to live his own stuff here, and we already saw the way he is looking at the world from 2012 and the Avengers on, and he's got he hasn't been slow boiled as a frog the way we all have with the culture. So he's coming in and man, shit is really fucked up right now, and it's important, I think, to listen to his perspective hypothetically there. But yeah, the action is all good. The cinematography is all perfect. The performances, the Bucky and Steve of it all is ridiculous. The Natasha works really well in this movie. The Fury, everything from the technical to the fun side of it to the being a movie that works tremendously well in the MCU while also being a movie you can just show outside of the MCU. It just hits every single level that you would want it to. It's not the balance is tremendous on the character, the action, and there's a couple good jokes in there too for good measure. Just really, really well put together movie. Probably will be a long time, if ever, before this one slides out of the top 10, but
yep. Yeah, and I should say, this one isn't just in my top 10, or this is still my favorite film. I do genuinely not think they've topped this. Yep. And it's been 12 years, so I have a hard time believing they will at this point. I think this movie is just so, I have so much love for it, and it's so ingrained in me that I have a hard time seeing it get beat.
For me, just a little introspective. For me, looking at the top 5, it gets really MCU heavy. You have to be in the MCU for these movies to work. It's No Way Home, it's Ragnarok, it's Endgame, it's Civil War. Black Panther being the only movie that is a standalone kind of movie that I think best Captain America, Winter Soldier by a pinch.
Sure, yeah, I think you could largely watch Black Panther and be fine. Yeah. All right. Well, unless you have anything else to add, that is going to be our top 12 respectively. So our number 1 is decided, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Our number 12 is decided, Thor: The Dark World. Everything else in the middle has some wiggle room. So let's go ahead and put it together. I'm gonna make, so I have everything written down in front of me. I kept track of where everything landed. So I'm gonna make the call because it's collectively the highest film on our list. So I'm gonna put Iron Man at number 2.
Okay.
Because it's my 2 and it's your 4.
Yes.
So then next we have Avengers, which is your 2, my 7. We have Guardians, which is your 3, my 5. And then we have Ant-Man, which is my 3, your 6. So I'll give you the choice as the guest. Which of those do you want next?
I think it'd be Guardians by virtue of 3.5 to 3.6. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then we'll throw Guardians of the Galaxy on there. And then I'll go ahead and throw the Avengers up there since it's your number 2. We'll set it just outside. And then we'll throw Ant-Man on there just to take care. Our top 3s respectively make up the top 5.
Yeah.
So then
both those last year were at 9 points. So fitting. Yeah. Yep.
So then we'll go next. So we have 3 films that could go up here, and I'll give you first dibs here again as our guest. So we have Iron Man 3, which is my 4 and your 9. We have First Avenger, which is your 5, my 8. or we have Age of Ultron, which kind of falls in the middle of both at my 6, your 7.
All right, so yeah, those are all collectively 13s.
So which one are you feeling at number 6?
And we're on Iron Man 3 and First Avenger, Iron Man 3, and what?
Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron. I think we go Age of Ultron first, since that's the one we're most in the middle on.
Okay. All right, we'll put Ultron at 6. And then I'm going to drop Iron Man at 7.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
And we'll put Captain America, the First Avenger, 8. And then we have Iron Man 2, which is your 8, my 10. Incredible Hulk is my 9, your 11, and then Thor is your 10, my 11. So I'm just gonna drop Thor in, since it's collectively the lowest. I'll throw Thor in at 11, and then between Iron Man 2 and Hulk, which one do you want to set higher?
Iron Man 2.
Okay. All right. I think collectively we came to a list that the general public will largely probably agree with, but we'll go ahead and run this list down. Tato, if you could give me the numbers, I'll read the titles out, as these are the 12 films of the MCU phases 1 and 2 ranked best or worst to best. Start me off, Tato.
Number 12.
Thor: The Dark World.
11.
Thor.
10.
The Incredible Hulk.
Number 9.
Iron Man 2.
8.
Captain America, the First Avenger.
Lucky number 7.
Iron Man 3.
6.
Avengers: Age of Ultron.
5 great movies.
Ant-Man.
4.
The Avengers.
Trey.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Duh.
Iron Man.
1.
Captain America, the Winter Soldier. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the episode. Tato, thank you so much for joining me on this inaugural episode here on your channel, sir. Go ahead and let me know about anything you would like to plug.
Yep, here at Lights Out Singles Tournament starting up soonly. We'll probably have the bracket for that posted tomorrow or 3 weeks ago, whenever this is hitting your eyeball skins. Movie Battleground, probably got one more exhibition on the stack, then tournament season starting over there as well. Check out the third place, whatever else Aaron has going on over here as well. And go look at JPO's stuff over at the Pierce Co. He's a good guy.
Absolutely, all for supporting the good people. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode and sticking with this to the end. This is already a better start than previous episodes because we kept it under 2 hours. I will try not to go over that mark preambling at the end here. But just to give a look into what is coming next, our next couple of episodes are going to focus on the best and worst of the year in 2025. Yes, I understand that it's basically the month of April. I don't care. Like, normally I do this stuff before Oscar season, the weeks leading up to Oscar season. I was busy, life happens. So we're going to do it now because I like having a reason to shit on the worst of films every year with Pez. And I also like talking about good movies with whoever I get to do that video. So those videos will be coming at you soon. And then after that, going into the summer, largely what I will be airing are edited versions of episodes that we recorded. So despite the fact that I was at a point where I wasn't uploading videos, that's a whole psychological trip we can go down in a later show. I was recording content because I enjoyed using it as an excuse to hang out with people. So outside of any pop cultural references that are now dated, the conversations in the episodes about the movies are still perfectly fine. So we are going to be airing those episodes. Again, I'm probably going to largely edit the intros out just to sort of synthesize the content that's, not dated. But we will be posting those episodes and those topics first, and then we'll get a wave of new episodes. Now, there will be a handful of new recorded episodes thrown in because, like I said, I've been prepping shows theoretically for ages because I use this as an excuse to pick topics and watch movies. So, I've been watching, just to throw out some random topics, I've watched every DreamWorks film. That'll be coming soon. I have watched almost all of Ben Affleck's films, including, because of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Phantoms. That'll be coming soon. The movie sucked, but he was the bomb. That said, we have some more. I've watched through a lot of Jake Gyllenhaal's movies, so that'll be a topic coming soon. Whatever we feel, unless he unless Taylor Swift writes another song about him, in which case I might have to lay off for a bit. But with that said, I look forward to doing this more in the future. Thank you, Tato, for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us, and we will see you next time on The Rundown. Take care, everybody.